Hello and welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Last year I finally got around to picking up a copy of Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. I've been saying for a while I need to review the game one day, and today is not that day. Yes, I will get around to that review. I have plenty to say about this game, but I need a little more time to arrange my thoughts coherently and get the script put together. Suffice to say for now, I really enjoy Shadows of Brimstone, with some pretty huge caveats. It is the definition of big dumb fun, and one of the things I am really enjoying is finding a story within the chaos. The game has all the structures in place for running a campaign, but at times it feels like it's missing the connective tissue, that through narrative that makes everything feel worthwhile. Sure, it's fun to go off hunting for darkstones, fighting monsters for fame and fortune, but it can, at first blush, miss some of the grander stakes that help to make any kind of extended campaign engaging. The mission pack expansions will help with that to some degree, but I still feel it needs some nudging from an outside source to make everything more coherent. Therefore, despite the game being entirely cooperative, I have taken to working as a kind of dungeon master, using the tools at my disposal to craft a more structured narrative, which is, in fairness, something that the campaign book does suggest you should do anyway. When our heroes failed in an attempt to find a magical book that would seal a portal and they were forced to flee, we immediately played a mission where we were lost in the mines and had to escape before we were hunted down. When we succeeded in that mission and returned to town, we did so with heavy hearts, understanding that we would need to return to the mines to find the book and succeed where we had originally failed. I don't claim to be doing serious heavy lifting here. I am not crafting great tales that will echo through the centuries, but it adds enough colour and texture to our story to make everything feel more motivated, and as a result we invest more in our successes and failures. And this brings us to the point of today's video. At the moment I don't have a lot of Shadows of Brimstone's products, and frankly a core set can only provide so much of the adventure that the game promises. The designers did do a pretty decent job of getting the most possible out of a relatively small cast of monsters. You get the basic ones, the brutal ones, randomly allocated elite skills as they become tougher, and re-themed versions for use in other worlds. But ultimately, after a while fighting void spiders, you will start to wish you weren't just fighting void spiders. So I do intend to expand the game, moderately, and I am currently waiting on some back orders for a few things I really want. In the meantime, I decided to pick up one of these small enemy packs, and I went for the Shikarri Nomad Crusaders. These may seem like a slightly unusual choice, but they worked for my needs mechanically and narratively. City of the Ancients contains only monstrous foes. They are all demons and tentacles and bloody void spiders. Furthermore, they are all melee combatants. I was looking for something that felt different from these enemies, something not so easily identifiable as a monster, and something with a ranged attack to give my group of heroes something different to worry about when the proverbial hits the proverbial. On those grounds, the Nomads were perfect, but it was their background story that really sold me. They are from a planet destroyed by Darkstone, and that loss has manifested in hatred. They now hunt down anyone who uses Darkstone and purges those who show signs of being corrupted by it. This worked really well in our campaign because our brave heroes had waltzed back into town absolutely loaded with Darkstone and had started throwing it around like nobody's business, selling off stacks of it and using more to fashion tainted weapons for future encounters. Additionally, two of the party had developed some very obvious and unpleasant modifications. My gambler is now sporting a lovely set of eye stalks, for example. That being the case, it wasn't much of a stretch to imagine that word had got around about this weird group of mutants trading in Darkstone, and that those words had finally fallen on the ears of a roaming band of Shikarri, who were now going to make it their personal responsibility to eradicate the taint of the Darkstone from this region. The Shikarri will now serve as a recurring enemy faction in our campaign. I will be dropping them into mines and otherworld locations, but I will only spawn them in situations where no other monster types are present. And naturally, each encounter, each time we give them a whooping, is just going to make the Nomads that bit more eager to get revenge. But what exactly do the Nomads bring to the table? I have actually found it quite difficult at times to find out exactly what Shadows of Brimstone expansions are, what they include, and which worlds and other worlds they are compatible with, so I thought I would just do a quick overview here of this pack in a way that I would have appreciated when I was shopping for it. This set comes in a tuck box, but it's not that flimsy cereal packet card that you get with Games Workshop miniatures. It's pretty sturdy cardboard that's going to help protect the contents. The art is, like most of the Shadows art, decent, functional. There is better art out there, but I do appreciate the hand illustrated style. It gives the game a more nostalgic feel. For the contents, you are getting 6 Crusader miniatures with 30mm bases, 1 large enemy card with all their stats and rules, 15 game cards, 1 small counter sheet, and a rules pamphlet to cover all the Crusaders rules and how you can add them into your games. We'll take a closer look at the miniatures first. These miniatures are hard plastic and do require assembly. That means they come on a frame and you are going to need some basic tools to assemble them. Side cutters to remove them from the frame, a craft knife or mould line remover for cleanup, and then plastic glue to put them together. You can use something like super glue, but I recommend plastic glue, which actually melts the plastic so you get a firmer bond, and the glue can also help to conceal any small gaps where pieces join. There are 3 identical frames in the box and each frame makes 2 miniatures. At first glance, I was quite happy with the variety. There are 2 bodies with separate arms and 4 heads, so it seemed that by mixing and matching you would be able to make more than 6 unique miniatures. Unfortunately, each set of arms only works on one of the bodies, so rather than having 4 possible combinations, you can only make 2. And the variety of heads isn't great either, as the 2 helmeted heads are almost identical, while the 2 heads without helmets are so visually distinct I didn't feel like I would want to use more than one of each. In the end, I decided to make 2 Crusaders without helmets, which I would use to represent leaders or named characters, and then 4 with helmets, who are just nameless grunts. And while they don't all look as distinct as they could, I am pleased with them. The sculpting is okay, Shadows of Brimstone miniatures aren't the best, sometimes details are a little soft and posing is a little weird, but these ones do look nice once they have been put together. And they certainly have a different aesthetic to any of the other enemies we have been fighting up until now, which was something I was keen on. The other thing I like about the Crusaders is they can turn up pretty much anywhere. The set contains all of the cards and rules necessary for the Crusaders to hunt you down wherever you hide. You get 6 generic threat cards, 2 low threats that spawn D3 plus 1 Crusaders, 2 medium threats that spawn a random number of Crusaders determined by the roll of the peril dice, and 2 high threats that spawn all 6 Crusaders. Furthermore, you get 8 threat cards for other worlds: the Blasted Wastes, the Derelict Ship, Tradera, the Frozen Plateau, the Forest of the Dead, the Belly of the Beast, the Swamps of Jargono, and the Caverns of Cinder. That means there's a decent chance of Crusaders spawning on any mission you undertake. Personally, because of their background, I don't think they should spawn alongside other threats, so if I was to pull them in addition to other threat cards, I would shuffle them back into the deck as I don't see them fighting alongside monsters. However, if they were to arrive during an existing fight, I don't have a problem with that, as I can imagine them being drawn to the battle due to the presence of the monsters and all the Darkstone floating about. Once they turn up though, ouch, they are unpleasant to deal with. They are a medium-sized enemy with the keywords Shikarri, Soldier and Fanatic. At the start of a campaign they are going to be Initiative 4, Move 5, Escape 4+, with 4 health and a defense of 3. They are hitting with 3s at up to range 10, doing 2 shots with 3 damage per shot, and they are hitting with 4s in melee with combat 3 and damage 2. Already they are enemies that can hit hard and also soak a lot of damage, more than justifying the 35 experience points they are worth if you kill one, and it only gets worse once you introduce their special abilities. They get an armor save on a 4-up for a start. On top of the defense of 3 and a health of 4, they should stick around for a while in any fight unless you have a means to bypass those defenses. But what really makes them scary is their fanatical desire to destroy Darkstone and anyone wielding it. Their hunting corruption rule means they will always target the hero with the most mutations first, or in the case of a tie, the most corruption points. And then when they do attack, their seek and destroy rule gives their attacks +1 damage for each Darkstone and each Darkstone icon on items the target is carrying, to a maximum of +5. This could absolutely rip through most heroes. Amusingly, the seek and destroy rule can also work in favour of the heroes. If the Crusaders should turn up and the heroes don't have any mutations, Darkstones or corruption points, the Crusaders are rather friendly. They will give each hero a loot card and then mosey on their way, looking for trouble elsewhere. I don't think that rule is going to come into play very often, and certainly not beyond your first or second game in a campaign, but it's a lovely bit of extra flavour for these planet-hopping fanatics. And we still aren't done. The most important thing about these enemies is their snapfire ability. This has huge implications on any fight they are involved in, and can completely change the dynamic for how heroes approach the conflict. During an ambush, snapfire units aren't placed in the usual manner. Instead, you randomly select a hero and then place all these snap-firing models on that hero's tile as far from any heroes as possible. When they activate, they go through a 3-stage process. First, if they don't have any heroes adjacent, they will snap-fire with their ranged weapons. They will select their targets based on the hunting corruption rules, and there are cardboard tokens included so you can mark how many times a hero is going to get pew-pewed. Once all Crusaders have a target, they roll their attacks. After that, they will all select new targets and charge into hand-to-hand combat, making a melee attack with their knives. Finally, each Crusader rolls a dice, and on a 3+, they make another move action to get back out of base contact with their targets so they can start the process all over again the next time they activate. It is brutal. An incessant barrage of laser fire and close combat attacks from slippery customers that don't want to stay pinned down. The hit and run tactics combined with the potential for massive damage output makes them a very scary threat, and it really changes the balance of power as it becomes more beneficial for heroes to try to close the gap and get into base contact with the Crusaders to avoid the withering salvos of laser fire. And as your heroes level up, the threat of the Shikarri only increases. As with all enemies, the Crusaders have a chart of elite abilities that enables them to scale with the heroes, and some of them just ain't nice. Veterans of the Void War giving them defense 4 is rough, but I think Tactical Strike is the real terror here, giving them +1 combat and +1 shot, and the ability to instantly escape from close combat for their hit and run tactics. That is devastating. Naturally, there are also brutal versions of the Crusaders on the reverse of the large enemy card. All in all, I really like these enemies. Obviously you get more bang for your buck with a large expansion, a mission pack or otherworld, but enemy packs do help a lot by mixing up enemies you are going to fight and making it possible to customize your adventure by adding in thematically relevant adversaries that directly key into the story beats you are creating in your campaign, and which will help to personalize every experience. Speaking of which, that's nearly it for today, but I did just want to add a little postscript. The last time we played Shadows of Brimstone, my gambler confidently walked into the saloon, where thanks to a series of astronomically bad and statistically implausible dice rolls, he was shot in the back of the head and died instantly. The bandido, whose respect the gambler had recently earned with a daring rescue, scraped together just enough money to resurrect the gambler, and now we have another plot hook. Who assassinated the gambler? What was the reason? More importantly, what new enemy packs am I going to have to buy to help bring this new chapter of the story to life? Well, that is all for another time. Please share some of the fun story beats from your own favourite dungeon crawlers in the comments below, because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.